Staya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining us today. We continue with our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we are on Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 34. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadhyasya yato nvaya ritaratas chartesh vabhigyasvarat tene brahma hridaya dikavaye muyanti yat surayaha tejovari mridam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha damna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param Dimahi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tojaya Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Omgyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyvari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. It's taking. Oh, I see. Okay. So text 34. Bhagavan Brahma Karts Kartsnyena Triraviksha Manishaya Tad Adyavasyat Kutasto Ratiratman Yato Bhavet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. Purport. Sri Sukadeva Goswami is referring to the highest Vedic authority, Lord Brahma, who is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead. The Vedas were taught to Brahmaji in the beginning of the material creation. Although Brahmaji was to hear Vedic instructions directly from the personality of Godhead, in order to satisfy the inquisitiveness of all prospective students of the Vedas, Brahmaji, just like a scholar, studied the Vedas 3 times, as generally done by all scholars. He studied with great attention, concentrating on the purpose of the Vedas, and after scrutinizingly examining the whole process, he ascertained that becoming a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the topmost perfection of all religious principles. And this is the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, directly presented by the personality of Godhead. The Vedic conclusion is thus accepted by all acharyas, and those who are against this conclusion are only Veda Vada Ratas, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita 2.42. So today's verse again. Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnyena Trir Anviksha Manishaya Tad Adyavasyat Kutasto Ratir Atman Yato Bhavet. The great personality, Brahma, with great attention and concentration of the mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. Okay. So, let's see. So since I missed the last class, which verses were covered in the last class? Was it 31 through 33?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, I guess just very quickly, from 31 to 33, only the purified soul can attain the perfection of associating with the personality of Godhead in complete bliss and satisfaction in his constitutional state. Whoever is able to renovate such devotional perfection never again attracted by this material world, and he never returns. Um, oh, this is the verse right here. I was trying to see where the connection with Lord Brahma came. So it looks like it's text 32. It says, Your Majesty, Maharaj Parikshit, know that all I have described in reply to your proper inquiry is just according to the version of the Vedas, and it is eternal truth. This was described personally by Lord Krishna unto Brahma, with whom the Lord was satisfied upon being properly worshipped. Okay, all right. So in this verse, Srila Prabhupada, he's speaking of Lord Brahma, and he's acknowledging his very exalted position that the highest Vedic authority is Lord Brahma. Um, and I've never actually heard this before, that he is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead. So at least my understanding so far is that it makes sense that Lord Brahma would be the highest Vedic authority, because he was the very first one to hear the Vedas directly from Krishna. So if someone is the, you can kind of say like the origin to the continuation of the teaching, then that would put their position very in a very exalted place. Similarly with the Bhagavad Gita and Arjuna, how Krishna tells Arjuna that the through time the disciplic succession was broken, but now he's re-establishing the parampara, beginning with Arjuna through the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So again, putting Arjuna in that exalted position there. And so um, when it comes to demigods, Srila Prabhupada was he was very clear with us that there's a mood of respect when it comes to demigods like Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva or Varuna. That these are they're very special personalities that we may not worship them as other people do. Maybe they worship Lord Brahma, or they're devotees of Lord Shiva, and so we may not be devotees of these demigods, but still, Prabhupada speaks about having having a respectful mood and a respectful attitude towards the demigods, especially someone like Lord Brahma, who, as he's telling us here, he's the highest Vedic authority. This reminds me of I was listening to a class yesterday by Sadaputa Prabhu, and he was speaking about Yamaraj and how these that the position of Yamaraj is like a post. He described it as like being a president, that that the president can change, that someone else can be, because someone can be a president for a certain amount of time, and then afterwards the next president can come, and they take the position of president. So he said similarly with Yamaraj, the position of Yamaraj is a post, and so it can be one personality who has that position as Yamaraj, and then for whatever circumstance, that person can leave that position, and then it's the next person who becomes in that post of Yamaraj. So I'm wondering if Lord Brahma is the same. If it's the same with Lord Brahma, as Lord Brahma is this a post that Lord Brahma has, or is it because he does have distinct features. Lord Brahma has four heads, and so is it that Lord Brahma stays the same, or is this also in that kind of is it the same as with Yamaraj, that this is a post, and Lord Brahma can actually step down, or through circumstances it can change, and then another individual can become Lord Brahma in the same timeline. Um, yeah, I'm wondering if it applies to Lord Brahma too. That brings up a question for me. And another thing that stood out, especially from one other thing that stood out is that Lord Brahma, he didn't read the Vedas. Krishna didn't write down the Vedas for him when he was telling it to him. He spoke it to him, or it was received directly in his heart. Um, can't quite remember right now, but in any case, it wasn't something that Lord Brahma could sit down and read. Like we have books, so we can read the Srimad Bhagavatam. We can go on the internet. Like right now, I'm on the internet. I'm on the Veda base, and I'm reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I can read it again and again and again on the Veda base. But for Lord Brahma, there was no book that he had. It was all internally. He remembered the Vedas. And so when it talks about him studying the Vedas, he was studying it through memory. That this is what that he didn't need a book to know what's to know what the Vedas said. He remembered it all. And so it just speaks about how intelligent Lord Brahma is and his level of consciousness, because we're going to read today's verse, and then tomorrow I'm already going to forget it, or even later today I'll forget the same verse that we're reading. But for Lord Brahma, he could remember the entire Vedas, everything, the entire Vedas, and he could even remember it to the point that he can study it again and again, 3 times over. So highlighting our position of um, what hope do we have to have that level of intelligence and have that um, yeah, that kind of consciousness. Again, highlighting what Mahaprabhu spoke about with his guru, and how his guru was telling him to how he says that his guru was telling him to just chant Hare Krishna. And so um, more reason here of why it's so important for us to chant, because to really be scholarly and to really be able to absorb the message, or to be able to absorb these teachings, is it takes a very high consciousness that maybe we can attain, maybe not, but with with how our lives are set up and how society is around us, it's very difficult to be able to study Vedic knowledge in the way that it was in the past. And so we just do our best. And so coming here every week and reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is um I guess in qualitatively, we are practicing the same thing that Lord Brahma was doing while he's meditating on the verses. It's just that Lord Brahma is so exalted that his meditation of the Vedas is to a much higher level than what we can than what our meditation is. But in quality, it's the same. That we're also here, we're also studying Vedic knowledge. It's just dependent upon our capacity, and our capacity is not so high. But still, Krishna is very kind to us, and he appreciates that we're taking time out of our day to read the Srimad Bhagavatam together, to discuss it together. And so, even though we're not Lord Brahma, still we can please Krishna with our endeavor of reading Srimad Bhagavatam and trying to share what realizations we have from it. Um, and the difference for us is that we have to read it. So we can't remember the entirety of the Srimad Bhagavatam like Lord Brahma remembered the entirety of the Vedas. And then the very last point is that, again, just more reason that why what we're doing, trying to become Krishna's devotees, is that Lord Brahma, um, someone who uh, scrutinizingly examined the Vedas. He went through the entirety of everything, the teachings that Krishna gave him. He went through everything, the entire Vedas, and after studying it 3 times, again and again and again, what he took from it, the main message behind the Vedas is that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. So I'm trying to think of an example right now. It's uh I mean, I guess one thing I can think of is kind of like a mechanic, is that if you have like an expert mechanic who's gone to school, he's studied all the mechanic books, and then you bring him your car, he can tell you that to take care of your car, you just have to do this one thing. You just change this one thing right here, and your car is going to work perfectly. And so we can trust that because he's an expert in mechanics and in fixing cars, we can trust that what he's saying, that okay, this is good, this is perfect knowledge with when it comes to my car. This mechanic is giving me the perfect knowledge of, because he's studied all of the mechanic books, he's been fixing cars for years and years and years. And so whatever he has to tell me about my car, I should trust it, and if I do it, then my car is going to be run perfectly. So similarly, Lord Brahma, as Shukadeva Goswami is telling us here, he's studied the Vedas again and again and again. He's dissected them, he's examined them, he's completely absorbed the message, and he's telling us that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. So, through his position as an expert, if he's telling us this, then we really try to take it as best we can, that Lord Brahma, he studied everything for such a long time. And the main message that he got is for us to continue trying to be Krishna's devotees, that what we're doing and chanting Hare Krishna and reading and trying to serve the devotees and going to the temple, taking darshan, uh, just associating with devotees, that this everything that we're doing is actually the highest perfection of religion, which can also translate to spirituality, if we want to look at it that way too, spirituality. Um, so everything that we're practicing right now is the highest perfection. This is the highest thing that anyone can do uh, to perfect their um, their connection with God, to reconnect with God. Everything that we're doing is the highest. So if Lord Brahma is telling us, then as best we can, which I mean, I know for me personally, just still wrapping my head around these personalities like Lord Brahma, and how exalted their position is. It takes time to digest it, to really be able to understand when we speak about these personalities, just really who they really are. We can read about it, we can hear and understand um, who they are, but to really know it and to really feel it, that this is Lord Brahma, similar to saying um, like Elon Musk, someone like that, to Bill Gates. It's like Bill Gates telling us that I've studied everything and the highest thing is to chant Hare Krishna. Oh, Bill Gates, he's saying that. Or Elon Musk, he's telling us to chant Hare Krishna. Um, when we it's well, at least for me personally, I know that I'm not there yet with Lord Brahma, of seeing Lord Brahma in that kind of a position, but when we read about him, this is how we eventually can really see it in that way, that Lord Brahma is someone who's much higher than anyone we can imagine here in this planet. And again, he's telling us to keep chanting Hare Krishna, to keep trying to be devotees. So he's telling us this. So we have all the support. We have the parampara. We have everyone who's just reiterating to us, keep going. Just keep going, keep pushing, keep practicing, just keep chanting. Everyone is just encouraging us to continue. So if anyone else has any other thoughts or questions or comments that they want to add.
Well, Hare Krishna. Um, yes, I would just like to maybe you didn't listen to last week's class, but we were talking a bit about how we're starting to wrap things up in this chapter, and now we're starting to get the how would you say the resume, and like the the shortened, most direct version. Basically what Shukadeva Goswami is has been telling us in the last few texts, and is that there is a very long and complicated manner to go back to Godhead, or there is a very direct manner to go back to Godhead. And the direct manner, well, he explains the longer manner, all of the how would you say, the disciplines that one would need to practice and do, and and which may have served well in other ages. But then he goes on to explain that in this day and age, we've been told that we can get there very directly, basically by chanting the holy name, just by focusing on Krishna. Focus on Krishna, and all your thoughts and everything you do will be aimed towards Krishna. Your service, your just your all of your thought patterns. And then he goes on to say, and we know that this is true because it comes down, he goes through the parampara, and starting with Brahma, and in the previous verse he does that. He goes through, this has come to us. And we spoke a little bit about how religion, including some kind of faith, and we talked about how that goes on in all religions, not just in our religion. And the faith that we have in this religion is that these are words of God that have come down to that, started with Brahma and have come down the parampara, and we have to take certain things as given, because we're here and this is what we're practicing and this is what we believe. So we are in this line. If we are in this line, we take these principles as given. If we don't, now this is where Govinda can help me for a minute here, because I'm very interested to know at the end of the purport, the quote, the Bhagavad Gita verse 242. Now, are you getting another diapositiva or something? If you can find me about Veda Vada Ratas in the Bhagavad Gita 242, that would be helpful for understanding. But meanwhile, while you're looking for that, I just want to add one more thing, because this idea of having studied something 3 times, I just want to say to you, Govinda, that we've talked about this before. Even when we are studying our guru's books and we're working for him to edit them, we are never satisfied that we have done well enough or that we understand well enough, after 1 time or 2 times. We have to go through it like 3 times in order to just verify that, everything has been covered, everything's been, all the details. And even then, sometimes, since we're not Brahma, sometimes we miss things. But this idea of going through things 3 times is very interesting to me for that reason. But Govinda, do you have the Bhagavad Gita 242?
Yeah, I found it. Do you want me to read it? Or
Yes,
just
please.
okay.
Because I don't know, this must be in the purport, but the Veda Vata Ratas.
But no, it's in the verse. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Uh, yeah, and that part, this verse stood out to me too. I wanted to go back and look it up and see what it actually said. So thank you for for making me do this. So it says,
Sorry, I didn't get up to go get my copy of the Gita, but go on.
no, yeah. So it
Yeah.
says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. And then specifically, the in the word for word translation, they have the Veda Vata Rata translates to supposed followers of the Vedas.
Okay. So then there are some people who are following along, and but don't really believe or don't really accept, and that those would be the Veda Vada Ratas, yeah. So,
Hmm.
but I don't think I have anything more to add to that, and it would be interesting if Dr. Fabian has any words to add. Yeah.
You're muted, Prabhu. You're still muted. Still can't hear anything. I wonder if it's the headphones. Maybe if you try taking the headphones off and talking right on the phone.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So I read the verse 35.
No, Mata Yamuna was saying if you wanted if reading this verse, if there's anything that stood out to you or that or anything that we said, anything
Yes.
that yeah.
Do you have any comments on this verse or on the few verses before it? Because I know you heard last week's class. So if you have anything to add before we go on, that would be good.
On this verse, I like that the final sentence is that Krishna, the attention of Krishna is the best path to follow, the best thing to do. Because that attention makes us to develop our spiritual condition, yes. And maybe one day, if we can, if we were on a great platform, spiritual platform, we can go on Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka, yes. That's very, very good. I like it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fabienne.
Thank you.
Um, oh, well, yeah. I mean, just before moving on, thank you, Mata Yamuna, also, for just boiling it down too. I really that summary really is helpful for me of how you said that Shukadeva Goswami, he kind of went through, or he went through this whole long process and then giving the summary now of, but that really isn't applicable in this day and age. It's very difficult to try to do that. So here's a direct method. And yeah, which is just what we need. We need the direct method. We don't have the time to try and do an indirect method or something that's so long. And then also the point about the three times, yeah, reading or Guru Maharaj's books again and again and again and finding different things that we didn't see the first time. Um, and then also it made me think of Guru Maharaj when he explained. I think it was in the I'm sure he has said it in many different places, but I know in the very introductory class we did for Bhagavad Gita back in June 2021 for the San Antonio, he was asked the question about reading the Bible and how we can, or reading the Bhagavad Gita and how we can approach the Bhagavad Gita where it's not so intimidating, or Shastra in general, how we can start to read the Shastra and not be intimidated by it, or be scared of it. And then he gave many points, but as far as the three times, he also highlighted that when if I remember right, he said in the very first class or that he heard from Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada emphasized this, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't emphasizing blind faith, that he said, try to understand, try to understand, try to understand. He said it three times. So, and then, so, so the three times being very auspicious, being very important, significant. So when something is said, repeated three times, or something is studied three times, then that should be something that we really try to hear, try to absorb that message. Um, and and I like that word that you use, Bhakti Fabienne, the spiritual condition. Yeah, that's what we're trying to cultivate, a spiritual condition, our spiritual identity, so that we can go back to the spiritual world. So, with that, I think we can read the next one, Bhakti Fabienne, if you want to read. You could do verse 35. Cool. You don't. You don't have to read the whole purport, though.
May I help with the purports
Yeah,
because
maybe.
I'll read faster and but he can read the Sanskrit or the translation, sure.
Hmm.
Okay, no, I read
Huh?
verse 35.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Bhagavan Sarva Bhuteshu Laksita Svatmana Hari Risyair Buddhi Adibir Drasta Laksmanir Anuma Patakai. Translation. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence.
Thank you.
Purport. Now I read the purport, right?
You can, or Yamuna can.
If you want, I can read the purport because I will read fast and clear pronunciation. Okay. And then you can talk about it. The purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The general argument of the common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender unto him or render transcendental loving service unto him? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses, but when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by a practical service attitude, there is a revelation by the Lord's mercy, and such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive that intelligence is the form, direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels, but as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees. So the natural conclusion is that the living being, either man or beast, is the seer, and he sees beside himself all other things. So there is a difference between the seer and the seen. Now, by a little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception and of action, that is to say, our five perceptive senses of number one, hearing, two, touch, three, sight, four, taste, and five, smell, as well as our five senses of action, namely one, hands, two, legs, three, speech, four, evacuation organs, and five, reproductive organs, and also our three subtle senses, namely one, mind, two, intelligence, and three, ego. So that's 13 senses in all, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross or subtle forms of natural energy. And it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. As this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion, and as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and that the senses as well as the objects of perception are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. There are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development, but such an argument cannot be accepted because there is no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities, and this conclusion is arrived at by the use of intelligence. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man, and so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of superior being. Such intelligence is all-pervading. Every living being has this intelligence, and this intelligence, being the direction of some higher authority, is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority, who is present and residing within every individual living being, is the super self. I will go on if you will permit me. At this point in our investigation, we may consider the following question. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature, yet we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving or I am doing. Therefore, we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body, and that the superior principle of super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire. By taking advantage of the guidance of super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the possessors and doers. Our freedom consists in orienting our desire either toward the ignorant material misconception or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super self, Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The super self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the super self and the individual self cannot be on an equal level because the super self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the direction, and thus actions are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super self, because in every step, the individual self follows the direction of the super self in the matter of seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, willing, etc. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and superspirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the superspirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The super self is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation only. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of Supreme Self, Purushottama, the absolute personality of Godhead. Realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization, and by the progress of such self-realization, one is able to realize the supreme personality of Godhead by intelligence, by the help of authorized scriptures, and principally by the grace of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in the Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision, and there is no difficulty in realizing the supreme personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, verse 19, which, Dr. Fabian, brings us back to the translation. And this is full of so much good material to make comments also. Please, Dr. Fabian, read the translation again.
Okay. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Okay. About this verse, I can tell you that the practice of Bhakti Yoga that we do, all the aspects of the Bhakti Yoga, is the purpose is to reach our originary position of parts of Krishna and pure. The pure version, not conditioned by the ego or the material world. And the Paramatma, that is in every earth of every entity, give guidance, guide us to return of our natural position and to return and in the spiritual world. Yes. Even if someone can't see this process, that is a fact, because nothing can do something without the approbation of about God, of God, of Sri Krishna. And even if we do everything in this world, like eating, etc., that everything is done by God, because in reality, how Srila Prabhupada told, sometimes everything is spiritual in reality. But the material condition is a false view about the reality, even if it's the material world, but in reality there's only the spiritual platform. Now we are in this world, the material world, to understand, to realize this, because how we know the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual part of Krishna, that is all pervading, is everywhere. Every atom of the spiritual world and the material world is done by Brahma Jyoti. And the Brahma Jyoti is spiritual, non material. So to see the reality in where we are in this way is better because we this give us the intelligence to understand that Krishna, Sri Krishna is everywhere and he controls everything, even if he's eternally in Krishna Loka, Vaikuntha, in the form of Narayana, or in the other forms like Nrsimha, etc. He's everywhere. And in this material world, he will guide us by the material conditions. They are sattva, tamas, and raja, the three influences of the material world. We can't see the material condition, but there is, and only the pure devotee are free from that condition of slave of the material conditions. So the Paramatma, how told, with us in this material world, and when someone dies and takes another body, is always the spiritual Paramatma, the Paramatma, to give us the body, that body, for fulfilling our desires, like to have sex, to eat, and to sleep, etc. So every position that we can take in the material world, even if is temporary, it can help us to reach the goal of the bhakti. Yes. Now I think to the story of Bharata, that he after the death they take the form of an animal, but in that incarnation of an animal, he when he incarnated in that animal, he used to hear the signs and to stay in places where the signs pray and do service devotion, etc. And so, thanks to that, Bharata in the next incarnation, he had a human body to develop his spiritual, natural spiritual form and to return in the spiritual world. Yes, because in that form he if I don't wrong, he reached the goal of life because he did something spiritual, a very great spiritual thing to hear the signs. Yes. So thanks to that, even if he was in an animal body, he reached the perfection of life. So to hear the poor devotee of Krishna or Rama or other personalities of Godhead is the way to reach the perfection. Yes, in this life or the next life. But it's very important and it everything of the association of with the poor devotee of the Lord, everything can make us to reach the spiritual platform. Yes, and Narada. Yes, also Narada. Even if he was a simple child, he achieved the perfection of life and became Narada. How we know him in these days, in this period, in this kalpa. Yes, he became a pure devotee, a Muni, a great Muni. We have to follow the Paramatma, yes, because he's Krishna, a partial expansion of Krishna, but he is always Krishna, and Krishna wants that us return to him in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka, or in other planets, yes, of the spiritual world, yes. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for hearing me. That's all.
Hare Krishna,
Jai.
devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. All my obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Haribol, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, I accept my obeisances also.
So, excuse me to interrupt such a nice conference that you are having. And so we have a meeting right after when you finish. And so we can stay in conference. We just have to interrupt the publishing of this video conference in Facebook. So as soon as you finish, you let me know. And then we can start with that. Okay?
Okay, Guru Maharaj. I think we're getting ready to finish now. So
I
thank
think
you.
we just need a couple more minutes to
Oh, sure.
round.
Absolutely. Sure. Haribol.
Well, thank you very much, Bhakta Fabian. I don't think I've ever heard you. I don't think I've ever heard you speak that much and share so many deep insights and deep realizations that you've had. So thank you. And I guess I think it's because in the other times the video conferences, it was like 2 in the morning for you or 1 in the morning. So you were probably so tired and trying to speak and read. And so I think that this time works out for everyone. It works out really well because I think it's still like the daytime, right? The afternoon for you, like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. maybe.
Now is 3:30 of PM.
Okay. Okay. Oh yeah, I think you all use the 24-hour, right? Like that'd be 15 or something. Well, anyways. But yes, thank you so much for sharing. I loved hearing you speak and share. Um, I don't know if Mata Yamuna wanted to speak anything. We're coming up to
Well,
9:30.
yes, I just, I like the idea of trying to sum it up or, basically about what we've been talking about today or what's being said right here. And I think the important point, I guess, is that we have these three different identities, right? The material, the spiritual, and the super soul. And the material will never be a controller, because the material can never become spiritual. This our personal spirituality, when we begin to think that we are the controller, this is this is also incomplete. This is the ego speaking. But the third way, the super spirit, would be the Paramatma, which would be God, who is everywhere, but the part and parcel of God that's inside of our soul or inside of our body is the real controller and the one who controls everything. I guess that's, if we were to sum that up, that's what I would come away from it with. I don't know if you had something else to add before we close.
Well, I think it's a wonderful idea for every class that we have to try to, at the very end, try to give a little recap or summary of what's been spoken about. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, I think we've kind of, I think Bhakta Fabian said everything I was going to say. So um, I think I just with this verse or with this purport, the last thing I would add to it is just how I guess just trying to meditate and remember Paramatma's role in our life, and if we can at least remember our Paramatma, then we can remember Krishna. And so even having the power to speak right now, having the power to know the right words to say, is coming from Paramatma, is what we're reading here, is that our intelligence is coming from Paramatma. And so if we can just remember that, and then also it makes it, yeah, like Prabhupada is saying, it makes it so easy to see Krishna, that if you can see Paramatma, you can see Krishna, and you can see it in others, how we're all speaking, we're all sharing our realizations. And so where is that coming from? Well, it's coming from our intelligence, and our intelligence is coming from the super soul. So yeah, it's a very, very powerful meditation. Prabhupada, there's a reason why he gave us so much nectar in this purport. It's because this is something really tangible that can gradually go deeper in our understanding and deeper in our hearts, that helps us to connect with Krishna ultimately. So however, our position is that we take what we can get. So if this is another way to connect with Krishna, we have to snatch it up and take it. But however, whatever we get, we take it. So thank you both very much for coming. I hope to see you again next Friday. And let's see, any announcements or anything?
Yes, I think that we should begin to put our questions in English for the next question and answer, which would be sometime at the beginning of February, so we can begin to compile our questions. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, yes, thank you very much. Let's see. As always, there's our Guru Maharaj's kadachaeditions.com for Vedic books and on all sorts of topics for anyone listening at the very end of the class. So please join us next week. And Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Guru Maharaj ki Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.